Chapter 1. Although the Jedi Order had deliberately banished Illum from all standard star charts for many centuries, almost every Jedi trainee dreamed of visiting the sacred planet in the unknown regions. That was because many generations of Jedi had gathered crystals from Illum to energize their lightsabers, and some Jedi maintained that Illum crystals were the finest in the galaxy. Constructing a lightsaber on Illum was not regarded as the most challenging trial for a Jedi apprentice, but to Obi-Wan, it was confirmation that he would become a Jedi Knight. And if anyone appreciated the opportunity to become a Jedi, it was Obi-Wan. Less than a year earlier, when he was still a few weeks shy of his 13th birthday, he was nearly convinced that no Jedi Knight or Master would ever choose him to be an apprentice. But those days were behind him now. The Jedi Knight Qui-Gon Jinn, with some encouragement from Master Yoda, had taken Obi-Wan as his Padawan. Granted, they had gotten off to a rough start, and it only got rougher when Obi-Wan temporarily renounced the Jedi Order to join the revolution on the planet Malida Dawn, a decision that he quickly came to regret. Qui-Gon had forgiven him and accepted his return, but there remained an uneasiness between them. Still, despite their disagreements and conflict, a bond had developed, and both were convinced this bond would grow stronger over time. And so it was that Obi-Wan and his master, traveling in a small transport ship on loan from the Galactic Senate, had made the pilgrimage to the snow-covered world of Illum. As Obi-Wan meditated over the blue crystal he had just harvested from the frigid cavern, Qui-Gon stood a short distance away watching. Using the Force, Obi-Wan Kenobi maneuvered the components of his lightsaber so that they hovered in the air in front of him. The blue crystal rotated slowly, then drifted into place within the lightsaber's energy chamber. Focusing all his energy on the components, he sealed the compartment and then adjusted a locking mechanism. The lightsaber's assembly was complete. With his lightsaber still floating before him, Obi-Wan shifted his gaze to his master. Like Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon was wearing an insulated robe to protect him from the cold. Qui-Gon's eyes were on the floating lightsaber, but Obi-Wan thought he detected something distant in the man's expression, as if his thoughts were elsewhere. Obi-Wan's lightsaber wavered slightly. Obi-Wan waited a few seconds and said, "Are you not supposed to say a few words, Master?" Qui-Gon's eyes flickered to Obi-Wan's. "Ah, yes," he said, returning his gaze to the hovering lightsaber. He recited, "The crystal is the heart of the blade. The heart is the crystal of the Jedi. The Jedi is the crystal of the Force. The Force is the blade of the heart. All are intertwined. The crystal, the blade, the Jedi. You are one." Obi-Wan heard Qui-Gon's hesitation in the final sentence and thought he detected a hint of sorrow in his master's voice. As he reached out to grasp the floating lightsaber and lower it to his side, he said, "Have I done something wrong, Master?" "No, Padawan," Qui-Gon answered. "You've done well. I regret it is I, for the change, who is not being mindful of the moment." Then Qui-Gon looked away, letting his gaze sweep over the cavern's interior. It is unfortunate that such wonderful surroundings can become diminished by foolish memories. Obi-Wan shook his head. "I'm sorry, Master, but I don't understand." Qui-Gon returned his gaze to Obi-Wan and said, "The last time I stood in this chamber, it was with Xanatos." Obi-Wan swallowed hard. Xanatos had been Qui-Gon's previous Jedi apprentice. Strong with the Force and a brave warrior, Xanatos had served alongside Qui-Gon on numerous missions, but ultimately left the Jedi Order to ally with his biological father, a corrupt governor who had initiated a civil war in their homeworld, Telos IV. Qui-Gon had been forced to kill Xanatos' father, an action that did nothing to stop or divert Xanatos on his path to the dark side. For years afterward, Qui-Gon had maintained that he might never take another apprentice, and that he eventually did was much to Obi-Wan's credit. But shortly after Obi-Wan became Qui-Gon's apprentice, Xanatos re-emerged, seeking revenge against his former master, and nearly destroying the Jedi Temple in the process. Obi-Wan had been with Qui-Gon when they caught up to Xanatos on Telos 4, and neither was able to stop the dark former Jedi from deliberately ending his own life by plunging into a boiling black pool of acid. "Xanatos, wasn't your fault," Obi-Wan blurted out without thinking. Qui-Gon had not asked for his opinion, and he felt his face flush. "Perhaps you're right," Qui-Gon replied. "But for a time, Xanatos was my responsibility, and he was also my friend." Obi-Wan had no response for this. He had come to regard Xanatos as the embodiment of evil, and had a hard time believing that he could have ever been a friend to anyone. Obi-Wan also felt a bit stung. The trip to Illum was important to him, and he hadn't expected his master's thoughts to dwell on Xanatos. He almost wished that Qui-Gon's memory of the failed apprentice had dissolved along with Xanatos himself on Telos 4. But he immediately buried the thought and banished it from his mind. Such a line of thinking could only lead to the dark side. Obi-Wan didn't need Master Yoda, Qui-Gon, or anyone else to remind him of that. Qui-Gon sighed. "You have worked very hard towards this day, and I regret I allowed unpleasant memories to intrude. Forgive me, Obi-Wan." Obi-Wan was taken aback by his master's request for forgiveness. Although he wasn't sure whether to speak, he said, I forgive you, Master." "Then all is well," Qui-Gon said, smiling as he placed his broad hand on Obi-Wan's shoulder. "Come now, let us see the result of your handiwork, this blade you have created by the will of the Force." Stepping back from Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan held his lightsaber in front of him and thumbed the activation switch. The beam ignited, and the cavern's crystalline walls reflected its brilliant blue light as they magnified the sound of the weapon's distinctive hum. Obi-Wan had been raised in the Jedi Temple and had more experience with lightsabers than many Padawans his age. Still, his eyes went wide with surprise as he felt the brilliant beam that extended before him. He had expected that the Illum crystal would produce a more intense beam than the weapon's previous crystal, which he had selected from a supply at the Jedi Temple's lightsaber crafting facility. But he was not prepared for the way the Illum crystal would make the weapon feel in his grasp. It was different somehow. He tested it, sweeping the blade through the air. The blade was still pure energy and without weight, but it seemed more precise and focused. Obi-Wan looked at Qui-Gon, who smiled as if he could read his Padawan's thoughts. Qui-Gon said, "Some Jedi claim the Illum crystals make one feel more connected to the Force." Before Obi-Wan could comment, a beeping sound came from the comlink at Qui-Gon's belt. Obi-Wan deactivated the lightsaber as Qui-Gon removed the comlink, listened briefly, and then said into it, "On our way." "What is it, Master?" "A mission," Qui-Gon said, returning the comlink to his belt. We're to go to Ord Sagat." "Ord Sagat?" Obi-Wan shook his head. "I've never heard of it." "It's in the Outer Rim territories." Obi-Wan lifted his eyebrows. "It wasn't every day that Jedi were assigned to the Outer Rim," he said. "Isn't that a little out of our jurisdiction?" "Not when a Republic refinery ship and its crew goes missing there." Qui-Gon turned and headed for the mouth of the cave. Obi-Wan clipped his lightsaber to his belt as he followed, walking fast to keep up with his master's long strides. They returned to their transport, set the coordinates for Ord Sagat into the Navi computer, and lifted away from the frozen world. Minutes later, they were racing through hyperspace to the Outer Rim.